one with I wanna be the one with you. I wanna be the one with I wanna be the one with you.
What up, everybody? I'm Caleb.
And I'm Micah.
And we like to welcome you to
This Life Together. That's TWO.
Together.
All right. So on this week's episode 3, we wanted to address something. So Caleb and I, we like to take a lot of pictures. We like to do a lot of the same things. We have a lot of similar interests. And I think people often misconstrue our relationship as being perfect. Let me tell you something.
Nah, my G.
Nah.
This ain't that.
No. It's a work in progress. It's a whole work in progress. And so we just really wanted to address how we got to where we are, how our relationship works for us, and what are some of the things that really are the foundation of how we got to where we are and how we realize we have the similar interests and how we accept the interests that we have that aren't the same, because that's a thing. And how we argue, because that's a thing too.
Yep. I think the basis, and I know it can sound stereotypical, but it's in our case, it's legit. I have pride in the fact that we are legitimate friends. I think that people can say like, "Oh, well, that's my best friend. He my best friend. She my best friend.
This my best friend."
But they really don't be friends.
Who your best friend, baby?
Huh?
Who your best friend?
Other than Jesus Christ, you.
Just had to get technical.
Yeah.
Proceed.
He is numero uno.
Fair enough.
Okay, but yeah, I think people pride themselves on people lie to themselves and say, "Oh, that's my best friend. He my best friend. She my best friend." And although you'll never know 100% about another person, the fact that I think people define friendships in a different way. We talk about everything. We communicate about everything. We make decisions not solely for ourselves. I mean, granted that we're engaged and we're going towards marriage, I think that's one thing for us to consider, that we aren't going to be thinking about ourselves. We're going to be thinking about a relationship or us together. Yeah. So we can't just make a decision based on that. But I think that when you look at a person and you think about how this would affect them before you act, and then just thinking proactively too, I think that goes a long way in terms of how I look at our friendship. I don't want to look at it like, I don't like to make decisions hastily, and I don't want to just do something just flying off the cuff. Not all the time, but just a level of care into my decision making, I think attributes to the friendship that we actually have.
I think it's important too, because I feel like you and I are very equally yoked. So even in the areas where we're not exactly the same, there are plenty of things that we do differently. We have different preferences, the way we handle certain situations, but we balance each other very well. And I think that's something that allows us to be good friends, and it keeps our relationship, to me, fun. Like, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody that I can't have fun with. It's just like, what's the point? And I also don't want to be in a relationship with somebody that I can't tell everything to, especially us getting married, us living together, us building a life together, us having kids together. There should be no one that I'm addressing our problems with except for us and the Lord and good counsel. But y'all get the point. Like, obviously, if it's something going wrong in our relationship, but I'm talking to everybody outside of our relationship about what's wrong, how are we going to fix what's going on in our relationship? So I think that's important. And we really just got to know each other. Granted, we clicked pretty fast because we're probably the goofiest two people that we know. But I think one of the things that really attracted me to Caleb is that I feel like Caleb is me, but nicer. Like, Caleb is like the friendly version of me.
I don't even know what that means.
You're nice.
I'm nicer than you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're a people person. I'm a people person, but people like you.
I don't know. You might have me beat in that department.
Strangers love me.
Strangers love you,
weird.
which is much more of a talent than.
That's a whole nother episode that we're not even going to delve into. But I think that's just really important. And I think having the mentality of us being friends and considering each other best friends is really one of the things that differentiates between you having a girlfriend and a boyfriend, or you seeking to build a life with somebody, you seeking to make somebody your spouse.
Yep. And I think that's a good point, because people, I know the people that I know, friends that I have, relatives that I have, they all have this misconception that you have to be with somebody. And for a while, I was around you. Like, you're going to be what you see, most likely. So you have to be cautious of what you put in front of your face anyway. But I think that people pump up this idea of, oh, you need a girlfriend. Oh, you 17, 18, you ain't got no girlfriend. Or then next thing you know, you 22, 23. Oh, you ain't got no wife. You ain't married. You ain't got no kids.
Or you've been in a relationship with somebody so long, and it ain't even somebody that you like, but you just in the relationship because your family and your friends make you feel like you gotta have a girlfriend or a boyfriend.
So yeah, nah. The thing that I had to break with my mentality was, when you get comfortable being by yourself, knowing legit who you are, what you do and don't like, because you can't do that with another person. You need to know all of this stuff prior to. I mean, granted, you're going to learn stuff that you do and don't like when you are with that person, but you need to go in and you need to go into a relationship being 100% a person. You'll be lying to yourself if you were saying, oh, well, it's 50-50, because it ain't going to never be 50-50. So, it's 100% people coming together. There's no 50% person. So I think that for me, the sooner I realize, like, what was I looking for in a girlfriend versus what was I looking for in a wife? So when I started shifting, like, what I was actually looking for, I think that kind of helped me realize what it was that I was actually looking for, and then ultimately find that person. Because I had it was water. I think that was a thing that when I think I had made a list. I had a real long list. It was like a whole bunch of stuff and that I was looking for in a mate. And then it went from that to, okay, let's be realistic. So then the stuff started getting chopped off. Then it was like, all right, out of this list, what's important? And it was like, I think I narrowed it down. It was maybe like 5 to 10 things. The list ain't here, but eventually we'll talk about it again. But I think that people don't do stuff like that. They don't take their relationships or their significant others as serious as that. So I think when people realize that you devoting your time, your energy, and your life with this person, you can't just say, oh, this is going to be my girlfriend for 3 weeks, 3 months.
Or even worse than that, this is going to be my girlfriend for indefinite
30 years.
Or even worse, you spending all your time with somebody and you can't even decide if you want to make this person your girlfriend or your significant other, because that's shaky territory too. So I guess, how did you get to the place where you kind of siloed yourself to figure out exactly what it was that you wanted? Because it's a lot of people who haven't even gotten that far. Like, the craziest thing, I don't even know which table talk this was, but the episode with Wale on it.
Like two episodes ago.
Tripped me out.
Well, 2 episodes
Jada
now.
asked Wale, what was he looking for in a woman? This man looked dead in the camera and said, I'm looking for a woman that can show me what I want in a woman. How, sir? You're an adult.
Yeah, I don't.
He old too. Like, you ain't really at that cutesy age where you're not supposed to know what you want. Like, you gotta figure that out. But he's adamant that he's ready. So how did you get ready, baby? Like, how did you figure that out?
Well, like anything, experience, bumping my head up against the wall, essentially, thinking that what I wanted was what I needed. And I say that by like, I have dated, I think prior to you, I had dated maybe like a couple people, and it was just like little stuff that I would just notice, and I'm like, this ain't supposed to be like this. so I think like, but it was some things that I did learn now. It was like, okay, that would be something that I would look for in the right person, because obviously that ain't that. But I think just hitting my head up against the wall essentially so many times and learning from experience that ultimately life is full of choices. Everybody gonna make their own decisions. That's one thing that you gotta get into your own head. And now when I realized like, who am I to try to contort your
It's beauty in somebody choosing you.
Right. Like I can't just make. I'm not trying to sell I'm trying to sell myself, but I'm not trying to sell myself. If you get what I'm saying. So it's like not to be cocky. It's like, dog, what else you want me to do? Like I'm not about to sit here and just be tap dancing, and then next thing you know, 3 weeks later, when we quote unquote official, then I just become the real me, and then you like, who is this guy? So I think for me, that was a couple of things that I realized it's just dating people where it was just like they was super flaky, or it was just like things that I'm like, it wasn't reciprocated. I'll say that. For me, that was the biggest. That's always been a real big issue for me in the past. Where when I think about it now in hindsight, it's like that's really what I was looking for, and I never really realized it until maybe like the couple people before me and you started dating, or you and I started dating. Let me get my English together. Yeah, I think when you realize like you're not being reciprocated and you don't want to, or your actions and your energy isn't being reciprocated, when you get that in your head, and then not only just have it in your head like that's an issue, but you got to make a decision on what you're willing to deal with.
For sure.
So I think when I realized like, all right, I'm trying to waste my time, like dog, like I'm legitimately wasting my time. And the sooner I can make that a point to myself and to whoever it is I talk to next, then that was where I was like, all right. I mean, at this point, if they can't match me there, then I'm just gonna be by myself. I'm be perfectly fine with it. And then once I think I'll let you tell your side of that, but I think when I did get the courage to ask you out and then we did go talk or whatever, I just had to lay it all out on the table because I had just got tired of wasting my time. Like I didn't know what else. I didn't know what else to do because it was like, why would I even waste? Why would I not talk about as much as I possibly can the first time I do talk to you on that level? Why would I try to hold it off for like date number 2, date number 3? I'm gonna talk about this. Date number 4. I'm gonna talk about this. A lot of people do that. And I
there's date.
It's fear.
Like etiquette where, you don't talk about that on the first day. Nah.
Yeah.
I got some bags. I packed them. I got them with me at this table. Let's unpack together.
Yeah, and I think that's what I had to realize. Where it was like, that was the biggest thing. I had to realize what have I done in the past that contributed to me continuously hitting myself on the wall. Because I can't just say, oh well, we was talking and then it just didn't work. Like somebody did something.
Played a factor in that.
Yeah, and I think that's what the biggest thing for me was, just realizing that, like, nah, bro, you was on some dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And now you realize that it's dumb, don't do it again. So that's why I think when I did, like I said, when we did have our first date, I was just like, look, I'm hopefully she don't walk away because I'm about to be talking all night. I need to figure out some stuff.
Little did you know I was a chatty Cathy myself. But I think that's just really important, really figuring out what you yourself are looking for in yourself first. Because you got to start with that. That's like a foundation. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you can kind of figure out what you're looking for in a significant other or what you're looking for in a spouse. And I think it not only comes from recognizing the parts that we've played, good and bad, in past relationships and experiences, but also being cognizant of the fact that, one, just because you're not compatible with somebody doesn't make them a bad person. And 2, it's okay to forgive people. Mm-hmm. Even yourself.
That's pretty big.
And then also 3, understanding that just because you're dating somebody and they're quote unquote doing all of the right things does not mean you're obligated to be with that person if you don't actually like them. Them was like my big 3. Like if we don't actually have that chemistry and I don't see this going somewhere long term, and I got verbal diarrhea, so even on the first day, like the conversations that Caleb and I were having, we definitely had like familial cycle conversation on the first date. And that's just how we've always been. But it was necessary for me. Like I have to get stuff off my chest. I don't like to lie, and I don't like to sugarcoat or hold things back. So it was real refreshing for us to be able to have those conversations and really feel like he was being upfront with me, not just about the stuff that he had been through, because everybody's been through stuff, but also even just the role that he played in it or the role that I played in it, and for us to be able to be like, yeah, that was messed up, and recognize it. Because if we can't even recognize it, how can I trust, or how can he even trust that we've grown from that? Nobody's perfect. So obviously we both have messed up in the past, and just really being accepting of that, honest and upfront about that, and really talking about our scars and the scars that we've inflicted. I think that was like helpful.
Yeah. Just I'm trying to remember. I think that was something that people don't. You said something that people don't do, and that's people could forgive, quote unquote, whoever they was with in the past. They just basically just
still on the block.
They could just basically just did it like, oh well, I ain't think about it, but you ain't really. Not saying that you even have to physically or verbally apologize to them,
but you gotta
but you got
them with your spirit,
right? And I think that the fact that people I would say people do that before they forgive themselves a lot of times, and I think that was really big for me because it was like I used to beat myself up about it a lot because it's like, dog. On one end, it's like you wasting your life, essentially. Like you legitimately are wasting your life messing around with people that ain't got nothing to do with like
what
you like it's not benefiting you at all. So when I finally got over the hump, like all you have to do is not do it again. So what can you do to essentially fix whatever it was that you had done in the past? And I think that that can all kind of be summed up into just communication, and I think that's really big in our relationship. And I think that, again, just to go back to the overarching topic, is just like it legit makes me uncomfortable when people look at, like, I don't know if y'all know this, but it's like when somebody looking at you a particular way, like you can tell when somebody watching you, and it's not like you just watching. It's just like it's this weird gaze, and I feel like I've had it happen, especially since we've been engaged, now more than ever. So
what do you mean?
Like I feel like I'll see people looking at us, and they just look at. It's like the level above. Oh, it's like I don't know. I'll be seeing some people, and they be looking like it's almost like I want to be them, and I'm like that. It makes me uncomfortable. Where it's like, look, I don't know what you think you see, because even if you want to step to the point of social media, which is also perverted tool that can be perverted, and I think that even with that, I think that realizing that social media oftentimes is a highlight reel of everybody's life. Like they don't always show the real.
Even when you're being vulnerable and talking about things that have negatively impacted you, you're still the one who gets to shape that narrative.
Yeah, because the other person, there's only one person on the caption.
But yeah, I think communication is just like a real big piece of our functionality. Now, with communication, people always think that means like, oh, y'all have to talk everything out. No, communication means like sometimes, like when we get on each other's nerves,
gotta know when to shut up.
You gotta know when to be quiet, but you also have to know how to fight. You have to know how to argue, which is something, to be honest, like we still learn and we still get on each other's nerves. We still nag each other. Like it is what it is. I wouldn't have anybody else's nagging but yours, baby. But it's a real thing. Like you really have to know how to pick your battles, and I would rather us argue, get things out in the open, and move past it, as opposed to us harboring a bunch of itty bitty things, and then they pile up into one big thing, and then we just explode, and then our relationship is over.
Yeah, but with that said, though, I want to just quickly chime in when you said learn how to fight, and I think that's something that people don't realize. They think that, oh well, this person is not gonna be the same forever. You're not gonna be the same forever. So you have to put yourself in a position where you're vulnerable enough to realize. I don't know why I just couldn't say that word. Vulnerable enough to realize that you're not gonna always be right. They're not gonna always be right. But you also have to realize that that person is going to continuously change. And I think that's one of the
And
things.
sometimes you gotta yield.
Yeah.
Even when you feel like you're right, you might be right, but sometimes you just gotta take the L.
Yeah, I think that's important just because, you know, even just the way you talk to people, sometimes they might not like they might not like the way that you talk to them one day versus another day. And you have to be okay with that. Now, if it's ridiculous, then that's another conversation that y'all need to have. But, you know, a joke now might not be a joke another time. Or, you know, essentially just trying to poke the bear and see how much you can get away with. That's something else too that people need to figure out how their relationship works, because you can't sometimes you can't be the same way with your homeboys that you could be with my fiance, or how I am with my cousins versus how I am with my fiance. Sometimes certain things should only be for your relationship. I think you can't try to blend everything together, because sometimes it just simply just doesn't work. But I think you brought up a valid point, just learning how to fight. I think people look at that word fight like, oh, we need to be yelling. Like,
No,
it ain't got to be like
don't yell
that.
at me.
It ain't got to be like that.
I don't like to be yelled at because I yell back.
And then nobody can hear. So
It's very, very true.
yeah.
And at that point, you're not being receptive to nothing that's being said anyway. But I just think it's funny because when we first started dating, I just remember everybody asking like, "Oh, y'all don't fight? Y'all don't argue?" And granted, at the time, we
had.
Yeah,
we
we really hadn't like fought or argued.
We didn't have any real big disagreements.
It was just like, okay, whatever. Like a lot of stuff that I feel like people take very serious, Caleb and I really shrug off. And also, when it comes down to communicating, we talk about stuff, even if it's uncomfortable. We done have plenty of uncomfortable conversations, but we gonna talk about it. Like, whether he got to bring it to me or I bring it to him, or however we get to the conversation's gonna happen. Like, we could try to front like ain't nothing wrong, but then when we look at the other like, what's up, we gonna talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Just not necessarily faking it, but realizing that y'all business is y'all business. Our business is our business. And I think that was something that I really had to learn, and still learning, just because I'm so used to going to my friends and family, because
and like,
a lot of times, like in my previous relationships, it was like, it'd get to the point where it wasn't even me. Like, and this is just the God honest truth. I don't have no reason to lie. I'm engaged. But no, it'd get to the point where I would be trying to communicate, because I'll rather over communicate than to just be like shriveling up and then waiting on you to come to me like, well, I'm ready to talk to you now. Like, nah, I'm gonna over communicate you before I just disappear. And I think that's what I had dealt with in the past, where it'll be an issue and it'll be an issue, and they'll just fade out. And I'm like, well, what the heck I'm supposed to do? I need to talk to somebody about this. So then I would result to talking to my friends and my family about it, because I had nobody else to talk to about it. So just knowing that a lot of times, especially when it's something negative, to just be conscious of who you speak to, if anybody, because like we said earlier, if you're not speaking to each other, you're speaking to somebody else. So that's bringing somebody else into your relationship. And not only are you doing that, you're giving them one side. No matter if you're thinking you're telling the truth or you're telling it exactly how it happened, they're only hearing one side of that story. And if they're your friend or your family, they're probably going to take your side, quote unquote. So then at that point, it's gonna bring mixed emotions and this other stuff into the relationship between you, that person, and your significant other. And then it's going to just make things awkward. So I think that was something that, like I said, I'm still learning how to hone in, because, and that just goes back to like the cycles that we're trying to break, because I now understand that it's important for us to have that foundation of communication. We speak about what we speak about, and I think we talked about it early on, and how there's a difference between secrecy and privacy.
Absolutely.
And I think that when we're realizing that what we're doing is private rather than secret, I think it makes us feel better on how we
approach it.
Yeah. Even when it comes to our friends and family. Not to say like, oh, y'all don't know nothing about our relationship,
No,
but it's
I
like
think
it
the
ain't.
big difference is you seek counsel, but you seek wise counsel. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
even still, like, whether we communicate with our friends and family apart from one another, or it'll be times where together, like, we'll genuinely ask for advice. Like, when we were buying our house, like, it was times where we literally just had to ask people for advice, and we just really try to be mindful of the people that we're asking for advice. So you seek wise counsel. Like, that's a big thing. Obviously, you know, people always be like, oh, your single friends don't know nothing. Your single friend might know a thing or two. Like, it's okay to listen to your friend just because they're not in the same boat. That could be a good thing.
Yeah.
That you're in. But it just really, you have to be mindful of, is this someone that's going to be looking for me to succeed, for my relationship to succeed, if it's a healthy relationship. Because sometimes if you in a toxic relationship and you got people telling you that you need to get out of this relationship, or really trying to get you to shape your thinking to ask yourself, what are you getting from this? You should listen to that too. Whether that's coming from somebody that you're in a relationship with, or, I mean, that's in a relationship or that's not in a relationship, but that can still be wise counsel. But I think for me, that was something that I had to really learn. Like, what is the goal of me talking to the people that I'm talking to, especially if I'm talking to them negatively about my significant other? Am I talking to them because I need advice, or am I just venting to them? Because God forgives, family don't.
Nope.
And so, just really keeping that in mind, because like Caleb said, you only get in one side of the story. I could be wrong, there's two left shoes, but I could be like, yeah, you know what? I just came home, he was doing X, Y, and Z, and I just lost it. And they're going to be like, what? And then the next thing you know,
looking at me like,
every family function, they got their nose turned up. So I just think it's really important to be mindful of who we're seeking counsel from, and knowing that it is legit okay to seek counsel. You just really have to be mindful of what matters to you in terms of what you're communicating. Because are you seeking this counsel to get somebody on your side because you feel like they're about to gas you up and tell you what you want to hear? Or are you really looking to get good advice for you and get good advice for your significant other and or spouse?
right.
Because that's real.
Yeah. And I think that, we say all of that to just, put it out. I mean, that's the reason why we did this podcast. We wanted to be honest with, our listeners and everybody that, we know, at least for the most part, our close friends and our family, they all know this, but we just thought that it'd be great for us to just put out there that relationships aren't meant to be perfect. Of course, that's the ultimate goal, to be as good as people to each other as you possibly can. And I think that when you get that in your head, like, nothing's gonna be perfect, that you're gonna have some bumps and some bruises, but you have to be willing to go through that. And with that person, like, you can't just try to run through everything by yourself.
Quit every time something get hurt.
Or that.
You never go nowhere.
So I think, to say all of that, I want to just go to how we make it work. Because for people to think that our relationship is all fine and dandy, I mean, I guess you can kind of look at it as a compliment, but it's hard work.
It's also one of those things where it's like, no, like, we're people. I personally get real irritated when I know people, like, personally, and like they really, really, really going through it, and they really having a hard time in real life with their significant other, or with themselves, or whatever, what have you. And we all know these people.
Yep.
And then it's like you get on social media and they're portraying a completely different narrative, and that's just not us. Like, I don't want us to be putting on the front or whatever. Like, if something is wrong, you probably will never know because it's our business. But at the same time, we're not going to try to sugarcoat it or paint it to be something that's not.
Right.
Because our story could really help somebody else that's going through the same thing, especially because we're kind of young. Like, a lot of people our age. Yeah, I'm almost 30.
What that mean?
Anywho.
I'm only 27.
And you fine. Let's not get sidetracked.
Suckers.
So, I mean, a lot of people that are our age are going through situations, but they're getting information from people who have been in, like, cycles that they should really be breaking. I know myself personally, like, I definitely received advice from people who have perpetuated and are still perpetuating cycles that I don't want to bring into our relationship, and I'm sure Caleb can attest to the same. So, I mean, we have a couple of things that we've done pretty much since the beginning of our relationship that have really shaped how we make things work, and when it gets hard, how we really reposition ourselves to make it not an uphill battle, but really just smoother sailing on one another as well as for each other. We pray. We pray. Like, if it's getting rough, if we having a rough day together or apart, like, we'll pray. Like, middle of the day, I get up from my desk and he'd be like, babe, I'm about to call you. We about to pray. Like, that's just something that we have to do because sometimes we don't have an answer. Sometimes I can't diffuse myself if I'm that mad. What I'm going to do when he say, let's pray? I'm going to be like, no, I don't want to talk to the Lord. Like,
I think that's important to know. I think that's important to know, too. Just, you won't have all the answers. And that was probably one of my, and still probably one of my bigger, obstacles that I would say that I'm trying to overcome is I'm a giver and a helper. So my first instinct is to just dissect whatever issue it is and I'm fixing this junk. But now it's like, now that I'm in a whole nother arena, because obviously I've never been engaged before. So it's like, well, now you got other things to think about because you're not just thinking about yourself. So you don't know nothing about this because you've never been in this position before. So just having... Hi,
I'm a helpmeet and I was sent here.
Thanks.
Just for you.
So I think that's something that people need to take into consideration, is just realizing that it's okay to not know. Absolutely. Now it's another thing to just either pretend like you know, and then it's exposed that you don't know.
You know, we both homeless.
Exactly, because I told you I knew how to buy a house, and I've never had a credit line or nothing. So yeah, it's a whole another subject. But I think that that's important, and like we said before. Another thing that we do is communicate on top of us praying together. I mean, we wouldn't even get to the point of us praying together if we didn't know what was going on. So I think that, that's huge. And, I think that I knew early on in our relationship, I mean, our first day, I don't even know how long we was outside. We just was outside talking for hours. That was our first date.
That's legit like one of our favorite things to do even now is just like take a walk and talk. And it's free.
Yeah, it's free 99.
Sure is. So I think even with the talking, like another big piece of that is talking and being comfortable with being vulnerable, because you could talk to somebody, y'all could have great conversation. You could literally talk to somebody all day long, but if y'all not really talking about nothing, is you talking?
Yeah.
Like, that's something that's really important. I know that it's very easy when you're first getting to know somebody to try to present yourself as your best self. Mm-hmm. And even gradually, as that peels away, are you still comfortable telling that person the things that you've gone through, the things that you've been through, or really just having a real conversation about where is this going? Because if we on date number 5, and I don't know where this is going, you don't know where this is going, like, at what point are we vulnerable enough with each other to just even have that conversation?
Right.
Let alone the bigger issues that are going to arise. Something that Caleb and I have really learned, on this journey to being engaged is really, I got to be upfront with him. He has to be upfront with me, because I would hate for something so simple as I really didn't understand how he felt because he didn't feel comfortable telling me, or vice versa, be the reason why we broke up. And at that point, we really probably shouldn't be together if we don't feel comfortable enough to express the hurt. I mean, if you're marrying somebody or you're thinking about dating somebody long term, it's the potential that you about to go on a road with that somebody, like, through some real stuff. Like, they could lose relatives, they could lose friends. How do you console that person when you don't even know how they are when they're vulnerable? You don't know whether they want to be consoled or left alone. And vice versa. If you aren't comfortable sharing that part of yourself with somebody, what are they really there for? Like, you can't call yourself caring about somebody or loving somebody but shutting them out. And that's really one of those things that we have to be, like, conscious of. Like, I got to put it on the table.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that's helped. What else? Oh, books.
Books.
Yes, books.
That was, this was before we had even done premarital counseling or anything to that effect. I think we started before, right? Yeah, we
For
started.
sure,
we
for
started.
Sure before. We started real early.
Yeah, it seemed
Like,
so long ago, but
like maybe 3 or 4 months into the relationship, we was doing how to get married books.
Yeah. So we had read The Wait. I forgot what's his name, Devin.
Devon Franklin and Megan Good's book. Which update? I feel like we gotta address the wait. So Caleb and I were both in a season of waiting when we dated. Waiting is hard. And we had our reasons for wanting to wait. We wanted to do things the way that God had intended for us to do things. And we fallen. And we got back up. And we fell again. And we got back up. And we fell again. And we got back up. So, I mean, it's just a real uphill battle. But that's one of the books that really helped put stuff in perspective for us when we first started dating. And helped us last as long as we did last when we really tried to do things the right way. And even now, we're trying to do things the right way. And that's just something that really helped us. But it also doesn't just address sex. The reason why I like The Wait is because it addresses just patience and doing things in God's timing, being comfortable enough with the pauses in life to not mess stuff up. It's really like a grander message of that book. And even now, I think that's something that we implement. Like before we make drastic decisions, like we got to sit on that. We got to meditate and pray on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you rush to decisions, you don't necessarily always make the best decision.
Another one that we read, I think I was trying to look for the name. It's called Getting Ready for Marriage.
I can't remember who it's by, but it's
I don't know who it's by, but it's
two marriage counselors.
Yeah,
I believe.
I think it was two male marriage counselors. Not that matters.
Yeah,
but
I know their wives both have the same name.
Yes, can't remember what it was, but it's the same. They that was a really good book. It was kind of cool because it was a workbook with it, and then it wasn't like a book. It wasn't a self-help book, and I think that sometimes, at least for me, I don't think I could read a self-help book and then think like, oh, I took something away with that, because I feel like I write notes in books all the time and I never go back to that book.
Yeah.
So with that, we did a whole workbook along with reading the book.
Yeah.
So I think that helped out a ton. And then the last one, I think we're gonna have to revisit it anyway because it's just healthy to revisit. But the 5 love languages.
We know everybody loves the 5 love languages. Yeah, we advocates too.
But it's important. It's important though. It's important to know.
Yeah, for sure.
And to just kind of like segue from there, I know for me, one of my love languages is just like quality time. I can't remember what it was called exactly, but just quality time, not necessarily like doing something specific. And that goes to like one of the other things that we do to make our relationship work is just carving out time to be with one another. Okay. But otherwise known as like date night. So we've got to the point now where we've scheduled date night. Nothing else is happening at that time. I mean, if there's anything that we might need to move around, it's still happening that week. So
and we might just take 2 or 3 like last week. We had a couple of date nights. I feel like we almost went on a date like every night last week. We was living our best lives. We got bonus checks.
I thought y'all was gonna hold us down.
What?
But
Who's trying to hold us down, baby?
The enemy.
Who? Okay.
All right.
Yeah, date night is something that's super important, and we actually just recently put a priority on that with buying a house and planning for our wedding and really trying to prioritize that. We didn't want to lose focus on how we even got to get married, and dating really allows us time to ask each other questions. Like Caleb said earlier, the people we are now is not the people that we might be a year from now or 2 years from now or 10 years from now, but we'll never know how we're evolving if we don't spend time together with each other and really just talk to one another. So we really just try to carve out that time and do whatever it is. Like whether we just stay in the house and watch a movie, that could be date night. Whether we play games together, I'm a beast at Uno. That's also a good way for us to spend time together, or even just going out to eat. Like whatever it may be, we really just carve out that time.
Cooking.
And we don't let not having money be an excuse Because, like I said, we paying for a wedding.
And a house.
Granted, the whole mortgage. Listen, if you live in Detroit, you know our struggles with DTE. The bill is high. We got a big house. It's an old house with a lot of windows. Our DTE bill fluctuates monthly, but it's usually about $200 plus. High. The heat low and the bill still high. But, just being mindful that we're not making excuses of why this can't happen. Like, we make it a priority. And I think that we do a good job of that.
That's how you want to bring this to close.
Yeah, I think that's a great, thing. And then something, me and Caleb corny. We like to do a lot of simple stuff. Like, if I be like, oh, babe, like, let's go on a picnic. He be like, all right. Like, we gonna go on a picnic. I bet you we eat good. Might be sitting there eating some buffalo wings. You never know.
We went on a picnic. I had Chipotle bowl.
No, listen.
Look.
It was fun. So, I just think being creative with the date nights, but also just being creative together. Like, we do a lot of photo shoot-esque things. Like, we're constantly staging photo shoots and really just being supportive of each other's creative endeavors. You might see us popping out some more creative things pretty soon. We got some other things coming down the pipe. But even just with this podcast, like, this is a great way for us to talk to one another and really just spend some time with each other. And that was another reason that even motivated us to do this. So, I think it's important to give yourself the space to not necessarily have a dysfunctional relationship, but be able to adapt to the dysfunction in your relationship and improve it. Accept it, improve it, grow from it, and then, move on from there. Y'all have a couple more babies, y'all good.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No Band-Aid babies, guys. We're not.
Absolutely not. No Band-Aid babies and no break babies. Don't you
We're
dare.
not condoning that D-way.
Don't you.
I did it.
He said it, not me. Nothing to do with that. But yeah, I think that's just real important. Giving yourself permission and then not idolizing other people's story who you may or may not know.
You don't know these people.
Even if you do know them,
you still don't know these people.
You still don't know all of the stuff that they've gone through. Especially, we get into arguments on a daily basis over stupid stuff. You think people know that we was arguing over the butter being out or something stupid? Like, just to use that as an example, like, you're not even probably telling people that, but it might really have been a pain point if somebody done left the butter out for a whole 2 weeks. Every time you look, they done left the top off the toothpaste, and then they left their socks out. Luckily, he don't do none of this stuff, but y'all get the point. Like, it's a real issue that people don't really understand, and we're crippling ourselves being in an age where things are so accessible, everything's visual, everything's at our fingertips, and we just assume that everything's like a movie. Another thing that Wale was bringing up, like, his perception of what a relationship is and his perception of what love is based off of what he see on TV, because he never had that example from his parents growing up, and you can't be what you don't see. So, like, he just thinking that whatever he see on TV is how you react, and we know stuff that's in Hollywood is it makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense.
So,
Julia Roberts was a whole prostitute. It makes no sense.
Oh my God! So I did not know that's where I was going, but just be patient in your wait. I mean, don't rush it. Don't rush into something and then you just kind of stuck in it, like Micah said, because ultimately these are things that's going to affect you. So if you have control over yourself, period. So just make the decision that you think is going to make the most benefit to you in the end. Don't just think about now. You got to really think about
the long term.
You really got to think about that. And it sounds funny because I feel like people used to tell me that all the time. And you think that you're doing it, but you're really not. You might be thinking like 2 weeks down the line, 2 months down the line. You ain't thinking about a year. When you're like, dang, we have been together a year. I don't even know your favorite color. So it's just like stuff like that. It's like people. It happened to people. So it's like I think you just really got to just be cautious, guard your heart. And just be patient. Yeah. Another
good little tidbit for like people who are actually in a relationship, like, be curious. Like, your significant other should make you curious to know more about them. Like, it's not a day that goes by that I'm not curious about what's going on with Caleb. What's up with Caleb? Like, And I don't mean that in an intrusive fashion, you snooping and doing detective work trying to figure out what's going on. Like, I mean, like, no, like, I genuinely want to know how his day was. I want to know what exciting things happened to him. Or if it's something bad that happened to him and if it's something that I can do to help him feel better about it. Like, I'm genuinely curious to know what's going on with him.
Oh, you love me.
Yeah, I do.
How about the Viola Davis cry?
Please don't. Don't get the snot and all in here. We don't have to. That's disgusting. Get it together. Listen. We don't have no tissue and I ain't got time. You will not pull offenses in here. I don't have no awards to give you.
I've been standing right
Stop it.
here
Stop
with
it.
you.
Stop it. All right. So on that note, you know, we signing off and we just want to really encourage you guys to not look at what you see, but really evaluate how you yourself feel, because at the end of the day, regardless of how much advice, caliber I give you, or regardless of how many things you see on the internet that sound good, those quotes from the Love Doctor and you know, all that, like, at the end of the day, it's what's working for you and your relationship and your significant other, because there's no cookie cutter way to do it right. It's only what works and what matters for you. So keep that in mind. That's all I got.
All right, y'all.
Peace. Bye.